It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Penn University's assistant coach and recruitment coordinator for women's rowing, Coach Kumari Lewis. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college rowing?
For sure. After graduating, I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do with my life. And I thought that moving to Manhattan and joining the corporate world was the right thing to do. So I gave it a shot. And I very quickly realized I'd made a huge mistake. And so I sat down and made a list of everything that I wanted out of a job. And that ranged anywhere from wanting to be outside, wanting to be able to work out in the middle of the day, wanting to work with both a team, but also being able to do some individual work, being able to collaborate, but also being able to get creative on my own. The list went on and on. And I very quickly realized that, coaching was exactly what I should be doing. And so I quit my job in New York. I moved to Philadelphia. I moved in with my coxswain from college, who was also a best friend, and I started coaching high school. From there, I ended up volunteering with the University of Pennsylvania women's team, and then volunteer eventually became assistant coach. And a couple years later, here we are.
What was it like going to Bucknell University?
Bucknell was awesome. Very different from where I work now, but it was a lot of fun. Something that was important to me while I was looking at schools was the ability to go abroad. And that, as a coach now, I cringe because whenever someone mentions study abroad, I'm like, oh no, they're not serious. I was very serious about rowing and obviously still am, but studying abroad was something really important to me. And Bucknell was going to allow me to study at an amazing liberal arts school while rowing Division I and also go abroad. So that was pretty key in my decision to go there. And once I was there, it's kind of middle of nowhere, but I also felt like I had found my people on the rowing team, and so I didn't feel like I needed a whole lot else. It was a blast.
What were some of your accomplishments at Bucknell on the rowing team?
Some of the big ones, in terms of boats that I was a part of, my junior year, I was in the second varsity 8. We won Dad Veils. So that was super exciting. And then my senior year, I was in the varsity 8, and we missed winning the Patriot League championship by 0.3 of a second. So for those familiar with rowing, like that's bow ball to bow ball. It's about an inch between the boats crossing the line. So it was a nail biter, and definitely disappointing to not come out on the winning side of things, but it was an incredible race, and definitely one that I won't forget. Personally, coming back from abroad, I came back fitter and stronger, and ended up PRing on my 2Ks both times that I came back from abroad. So I felt pretty good about my ability to train myself, and get the hard work done, even when I was doing that on my own. So that felt like an awesome personal accomplishment, but being in the boat with everybody else and getting those wins is a lot better.
What was it like being a part of the U23 team?
For Vesper,
Mm-hmm.
I actually, the day that we lost the race by 0.3 of a second, that was the day I got my invite to row to Vesper, row for Vesper U23 team. So it was a day full of a lot of ups and downs. That I think I was bawling my eyes out when I got the offer to row for Vesper. So it was a blessing in disguise, not winning that race, because it gave me the opportunity to row for Vesper, which was probably the most incredible summer of my life. We were training 2, sometimes 3 times a day in Philly, so on the river that I coach on now, rowing every sort of boat, both sides, all over the place. And it was some of the hardest work I've ever done, but with the strongest women I've ever rowed with. So it was extremely rewarding, but it was pretty tiring, I have to say.
What was it like, obviously, after Vesper going to the Yale Bulldogs for the camp?
Yeah. So I actually started working at the Yale Bulldogs camp after working for the junior national team. There were some consistent people working at both camps, and my name came up as someone who could help out. So that was kind of my first introduction to a collegiate campus within the Ivy League and that kind of rowing program. I got to work with Will Porter, who's the head coach over at Yale for the women's team, my direct competitor now. But it was awesome, kind of getting that first glance into that environment. Even though we were coaching high schoolers, just being able to train out of that boathouse and understand, some of the standards for collegiate coaches, it was an awesome kind of window into the life I would eventually be jumping into.
What was it like, obviously, going to the Sparks rowing camp?
Mhm. So I've clearly worked a lot of summer camps throughout the summers. That's kind of the beauty of being in a high school or a collegiate coaching position, that you do have the summers with some more flexibility. And I've always enjoyed working camps because, you get to work with people who maybe learned how to row last week or have maybe been rowing for 4 or 5 years. And they're usually just really, really excited to be there. And it's a lot of fun to, just focus on the fun parts of rowing. Those camps aren't necessarily about racing. It's not about preparing the boat for a big regatta at the end of the season. It's about, like, how much fun can we have trying to make this boat go fast in a week? So definitely a different environment than what you experience even rowing in high school or rowing in college. But it's a lot of fun. There's plenty of warm weather and flat water, so it's a good time to be around.
Of course, with working with the U.S. rowing national team, what was that like, obviously, learning from them?
Huge. Some of the girls on the team were going faster as 16 and 17-year-olds than I went at 22. So it was pretty cool to see, what these young women are doing, and kind of they're the future of rowing in this country. And being able to be a part of their journey as they're getting ready to represent the US at Worlds was incredible. I was putting on a lot of hats while I was there. I, had a lot of different positions, but, I was from anywhere from being emotional support for the athletes to helping out with nutrition, to leading yoga classes, to coaching on the water. But I firmly believe that, like, I have just as much to learn from the athletes as the athletes do from me. And so, being in that position and being able to learn from some of the best high school rowers in the country as a young coach was really exciting. And I think they have so much passion for the sport and so much joy that comes along with it. But it's also really freaking hard. We are putting them through the ringer at those camps, and so you also have to learn, how far can you push a 16-year-old woman, safely and healthily, because we obviously want to keep all our athletes happy and safe. So there's definitely some fine lines there, figuring out, how do we make you go as fast as possible, but also make sure that you're happy and healthy. So that was a huge learning experience for me.
What was that like, obviously, being a part of that team with the U.S. national team, and obviously seeing the future that the U.S. national team could have?
Incredible. As I was saying, like, those women are going faster than I would argue 50% of collegiate rowers out there, whether they are Division 1, 2, or 3. So these women are doing incredible things. We had a freshman there who was going faster than, some of the women on top teams in the country as a freshman in high school. So it's really cool to see, like, how we can help develop these young women into incredible national team athletes. And I think that takes time, and it also takes a lot of skill as coaches to make sure that you're continuing to foster that passion and not turn it into an unhealthy environment. making sure that you're continuing to build their love for rowing and teaching them new things, because it's really tough. And, you want to make sure that they love it all the way through their career and continue rowing beyond. But, seeing what they're able to do as youngsters it's so exciting to project out, what they could do for the Olympic team in the future, because, you can really only get faster from there. And my hope is that we're setting them up well as high schoolers to then go on to compete in college successfully, and then, onto the national team.
What was it like for you to get your start in high school rowing and then eventually work your way up to Penn to become a college rowing coach?
To be honest, I had no idea what I was doing. I knew that I wanted to be in Philly, because Philly really is a home of rowing in the U.S. With Boathouse Row, there are so many programs here, so many high schools that are competitive, and so I knew that putting myself here was going to be a good start. But from there, I started applying to a couple different schools, and I started coaching at Harriton. And it was a super small program. I was very quickly just handed the women's team, and I kind of figured it out along the way. I didn't have a whole lot of examples to follow. I had plenty of knowledge to draw from my experiences rowing and from all the amazing coaches that I have had. But I was handed those varsity women's boats and told, go figure it out. But I created a bond with those girls, and we figured out how to have some success that season. And from there, I knew that I had to keep learning. I think one of the most important things as a coach is that you can never be complacent with the information that you have. You constantly have to be trying to learn something new. It doesn't have to be rowing specific, but I think constantly expanding your education and expanding your knowledge base is crucial. And having UPenn so close, I felt like that was kind of the best opportunity for me to see an elite rowing program who had just hired a brand new head coach, who I'd kind of followed Coach Wes's track record and seen he'd been incredibly successful at the D3 level. And so I wanted a chance to learn from him. I thought that he would be kind of the best mentor within Philly. So I actually took a job working at the Sparks rowing camp based at Penn. And that was my first introduction to UPenn. And then from there, I applied to be a volunteer assistant. I like to think I was in the right place at the right time, because one of the assistants ended up leaving her job during the school year, and I was offered a full-time position. So it was a very natural progression for me. But I was doing a lot of hard work to make sure that I could be a viable option for the job.
What were some of your roles as the recruitment coordinator for the women's rowing team?
Yeah, so that's the position I'm in now, and I am reaching out to high school juniors and seniors, figuring out who's going to be a good fit for Penn, who's going to help us go fast and help us win. So I am constantly on the phone with juniors and seniors, mostly juniors. We're allowed to start talking to them after their sophomore year. So we try to scope out, who's going to be, who has the potential to be successful, who's already having some success, and, how would they fit into our community? Because at the end of the day, we need to make sure we're bringing people in who are going to be a good fit for Penn. It's not just about, the fastest people possible only. It also has to be who's going to fight like heck to help us go faster, and also, who's going to contribute positively to our team culture and, what we're trying to build.
Plus, obviously, your time on the high school level helped you to where you are now as the recruitment coordinator for Penn.
I had a lot of autonomy on the high school level. I was creating my own practice plans. I ran the winter training program, which was something that Harriton had not had previously. So I had a lot of flexibility there to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, which was such a blessing. So I was able to have some fun being creative. And, I think that also gave me a good vantage point to understand, why high schoolers are doing it. And there are plenty of high schoolers out there who are just rowing to fill out their, physical education credit, or, just it's kind of glorified babysitting sometimes. It's unfortunate to say, but it's true. Parents want you out of the house, you're going to go do a sport, and maybe rowing's the option. And so, you've got that end of the spectrum, and then you've also got the girls who are trying to go out for the national team, and everyone in between. So I think coaching high school before coaching college gave me an awesome understanding of the different levels of competitiveness, and also how you can progress, because where you are as a freshman is not where you're going to be as a junior and senior. And even if you might have been messing around as a freshman, not super serious about it, some people discover their passion for it junior, senior year and realize, hey, I want to be really competitive. I want to go win. I want to row for some of the best schools in the country. And so my job is fun trying to figure out, like, who's going to row all 4 years, who is going to be super competitive, get the hard work done, go in after hours and get extra work done, outside of practice, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen to help a team be successful. So, getting to know those girls, and even the boys team as well, working for that high school, gave me a good understanding of, the high school brain as much as you can. It's definitely a bit volatile, but it was awesome just kind of hearing from them, like, what they were looking for in a college experience, what they wanted, and how college rowing will fit into their lives. Just give me a better understanding for all of that.
Of course, what is it like, obviously, coaching co-ed rowing, where you have both the men's team and the women's team?
So I was coaching co-ed in high school, but now I strictly work with the women. But in high school, working with the boys and girls, it's not as different as you might think. And I think something that I have learned over time too is that you shouldn't necessarily treat them differently. Plenty of girls want to be super competitive and fired up, and want to be given the information as it is, and plenty of boys the same thing. And so I think it kind of levels the playing field. There's plenty of girls out there who are beating boys in high school. That's actually something we see a lot in competitive college rowers. The women who race against boys in high school or trained against boys in high school are some of the most fired up women I've ever met. And it's awesome to see, what drives people. But being able to work with boys and girls in high school, I think, also expands your ability to communicate with different people, read the social cues, understand, when it's time to joke around and when it's time to get serious. It just gives you a better idea of, who you need to cater to. Because at the end of the day, I don't think a cookie cutter approach is effective. I don't think you can do the exact same thing for every single person that you're working with. You do need to figure out, does this person need me to be stricter? Does this person need me to be more aggressive? Does this person need, a high five and a pat on the shoulder? It's a little bit different for everybody. And getting to work with boys and girls gives you more insight into kind of the different personalities that you might be working with and what different people need.
What are some of your accomplishments so far with the Penn rowing program?
So COVID has obviously messed things up a little bit, but I have primarily been coaching the fours. And I mean, that has been an awesome privilege. This past year, coming out of COVID, we did not have an Ivy League championship. So that has been a little bit of a disappointment, but this year we're excited to see, what we can do. This fall, we put up record placements at the head of the Charles and also at the Princeton Chase, which were two of our biggest races for the fall. And so it's going to be really cool to see what we can do this spring. We've got one of the most challenging race schedules in the country. We're going to be going up some of the fastest schools out there. So we're really looking forward to kind of seeing how we stack up relative to some of the fastest teams out there. But, overall, since I started working with Coach West, we've kind of helped build up the team from consistently finishing 7th or 8th in the Ivy League to now kind of finishing 3rd, 4th, 5th. So like right in the middle. We're obviously not too happy with that. We don't want to be complacent, want to keep charging forward, but also pleased to see that, that growth. We have continued to improve, but we certainly don't want to stop where we are.
Who are some teams that you face in your conference?
In our conference, we're within the Ivy League conference, so it's the other Ivy League schools, Yale, Princeton, Brown, Harvard, Dartmouth, Cornell, Columbia. Those are kind of the main ones within our conference. And then outside of that, we consistently race Duke, Syracuse, Rutgers, UVA, sometimes UCLA. We'll be heading out to race the Pac-12 this year as well. So there's a pretty wide range of schools that we'll be seeing pretty consistently this year.
What is that like, obviously getting to play some of those non-conference teams, like how you said you played Duke, Virginia, and Rutgers and UCLA?
It's really awesome to see, how we compare to them, knowing that, some of those teams are coming from schools with a lot of football money, a lot of money that's being thrown at rowing. And, coming from the Ivy League, where the emphasis is more so on academics, and, rowing is super competitive, but, the university very much says like, hey, academics are number one. And so, knowing that we can go head to head with them and be super competitive and win, it kind of gives us, a sense of pride, because, we're working with some of the brightest minds in the country. These women are going to go off and change the world after they graduate, if they're not already doing it. And so being able to, see how they are thriving in the classroom. We have women on the team starting their own businesses as sophomores, juniors in college. But when they get in the boat, like, they are 100% a rower. They are 100% committed to, how can I make this boat go as fast as possible? And knowing that, they're going up against schools where rowing is their job, rowing is their number one priority. Academics are off to the side. It's pretty cool to see that we can be really freaking competitive with them, and know that, we can be amazing academically, but also amazing on the water.
What does a typical rowing meet look like on the conference side with Brown and Yale?
So the way our races typically work is it'll be either semifinals in the morning and then finals in the afternoon. Occasionally we'll go a straight final, but typically a race will be 6 boats across. You're all lined up even from the start. You race 2,000 meters, and then from there they'll take the fastest times and then move on to the final. So it kind of depends on how many boats are in the race, how many people are there to compete. But overall, we're usually racing, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, into the final, to see, who can ultimately put out the fastest boat.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've helped build for the Penn rowing?
For sure. So from what I can tell, I think we have built a pretty incredible culture of, love and support for each other, but also really competitive. People might be sea racing their best friend, or they might be side by side on the erg doing a competitive piece. But at the end of the day, they still support each other. There's high fives going around all the time. People are yelling, "Yeah, Penn," during pieces. There's a lot of Penn pride and a lot of team pride. But everyone kind of understands, like, it's about how fast can we make each boat go. It's not just about how fast can I go, and I think that's been a really important shift over the last couple of years, and making everyone understand, everyone matters. You might not be in the varsity 8, but your work on a daily basis matters. And, even if you are in the third varsity 8, you are helping push the second varsity 8, and the second varsity 8 is helping push the first. So it really has a kind of trickle up effect of, everyone's work is constantly pushing each other. And, it's that has been something really important to us. We can be a family, we can be really supportive of each other and be really competitive. It's not either or. Most of our team lives together. I think about 95% of the team lives together. So they spend a lot of time together. And it's really cool to see that, they nerd out on rowing when they're outside of practice. They come to practice having thought about, the practice plan, having thought about the technical changes they need to make. And when they're there, like, they are totally committed to making those changes. We're certainly not perfect. We're constantly striving to improve. But I think having the group of women that we do that is extremely supportive of each other, but also constantly trying to improve is really special. Going for that 1% improvement every day is how it happens.
What does the recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to go into college rowing?
So we are allowed to start talking to sophomores in the June after their sophomore year. So that's when we can first have contact. They're allowed to reach out to us, or we're allowed to reach out to them. It kind of depends on where your speed is. I think one of the most important things, especially looking at Penn, is understanding if you are academically viable. Making sure that the rigor of Penn matches up with what you've been doing in high school. That's kind of the first eliminating factor. Aside from that, looking at speed and making sure that you're someone who is going to help us get faster. Throughout the recruiting process, there's definitely a lot of phone calls, sometimes FaceTime or Zoom, chatting with the recruit, getting to know them, understanding, what are their goals? What are they doing to get faster? What are they doing to recover on a daily basis? Are they eating well, sleeping well, taking care of their body, doing, physical therapy and kind of rehab exercises to make sure you stay healthy. Because, we want you to have a long rowing career, and, you can't be reckless about it. You have to take care of yourself. So getting to know recruits during that process of after sophomore year, going through their junior year, is really crucial. We also like to get to know the family, have an understanding of where people are coming from, what their support system is like, so we can kind of know what to expect for college. Do we need to give that person, a little bit more love, a little bit more family support, or is it, we just need to push them harder on the erg or push them harder on the water? So it's really just about getting to know them and figuring out, are you going to be someone who is going to row all 4 years? Are you going to be someone who's not going to be up for the work, up for the challenge, and going to help us go faster?
What does the official visit look like for prospective student athletes looking to go to Penn?
So you're allowed to come in for 48 hours. So we'll usually have you stay with women on the team in their dorms, usually freshmen or sophomores, because they're kind of closest in age, taking some more introductory classes. So you'll typically head out to practice with us, come out in the launch, which is the motorboat that rides alongside the boats. So you get to hear us coach, you get to see practice, experience it. Then you'll usually head to class with people, kind of depending on what you're interested in. We try to match people up with classes that they're interested in. So, if you're interested in Chinese, we're probably not going to put you in an engineering class. We try to match those things up. But it's really about spending time with the team, giving you a chance to get to know the women that you'd be working your butt off with for the next 4 years, and making sure that it's a good match. But there's a lot of different pieces there, from practice to class to, time with the team to make sure it's a good fit.
Of course, as a coach, what is it like seeing those recruits come on visits and obviously fall in love with Penn?
It's pretty special. You can definitely tell when, you're sitting down with a recruit and they've kind of got a twinkle in their eye and they're like, yes, this is where I want to be. It's really special. I think we have some awesome things happening here, and I'm under no illusions, it's not the place for everybody. But when we find the right people for Penn who are just as excited about Penn as we are about them, it's really special to see that, and you can kind of tell when people have found their group, the group of women that they want to fight with, to get faster and to win, because you need that solid team environment to keep moving forward together. So it's really special when you find the people who are just as passionate about Penn as you are about them.
What advice would you give those high school prospective athletes looking to go into college rowing?
In terms of, what you're doing for your own training, I think one of the most important things is, seeing every day as an opportunity. I think especially in high school, a lot of people get caught up in the anxiety about 2K testing and erging in general. And I know I had that for sure. I was terrified of the erg and testing. And I think if I had just understood that, today's an opportunity to go faster. It's an opportunity to see where I am. I probably would have fared a little bit better early on, because it's so true. What you do today does not necessarily determine what happens tomorrow. And the people who are able to get up and dust themselves off and get right back in it, and keep fighting are the people who are really successful. So that takes being adaptable and flexible, resilient. But at the end of the day, like, you've got to put a positive spin on it. This is an opportunity, and if you didn't win today, you can try to win tomorrow. So coming back each time and trying again is really important.
What advice would you give those college rowers that are rowing now, looking to go on to the Olympic level or even professional rowing level?
Honestly, something pretty similar. It's really about that, that opportunity. But I think especially looking at college rowers trying to go on to the U23 team or the national team, you've got to have confidence. And you can be humble. You can have humility and show up every practice ready to learn, but you do have to have confidence going into it. And seeing each day, each practice as an opportunity. Those women who are training for the national team, training for the Olympics, it takes time. It usually does not happen overnight. It's very rare that you graduate from college and then make the national team. Some women are training for 8-10 years before they make it. Or they're on the national team, they miss a boat, or they make a spare boat. So there's a lot of different possibilities there, but being resilient and not letting that beat you down is going to be crucial.
What advice would you give coaches looking to coach on the national rowing team?
I think in terms of coaching overall, knowing that you're passionate about rowing and knowing that this is a lifestyle you're willing to commit to is something that's very important to pay attention to ahead of time. This is not a 9-to-5 job. So sorry, my dog's ears are in the background. But knowing that you're willing to, put the time and the effort in is really important. And that can sometimes take a sit down with yourself or your family, your partner, and figuring out, is it okay that I am getting up at 5 o'clock every morning and I might not be home till 6 o'clock at night? And I might be away for weekends at a time, whether that's recruiting or racing. And on the national level, like you have to be available to the athletes. I really believe that, when you need to meet with the athletes, you need to meet with them. You can't put that aside and prioritize going out to dinner instead of meeting with the athletes. They have to come first. I think when it becomes about you as a coach and not about the athletes, you should go. Because you can't live vicariously through them. You have to be there to support their dreams and to support, their growth as an athlete. That's really the important part there. So, I mean, I have not coached the U23 team or the Olympic team yet. Maybe that's in my future. But I think that making sure you are willing to, make those choices to put the team first is kind of the first thing that comes to mind.
What advice would you give up and coming future college rowing coaches?
Yeah. I not to toot my own horn, but I do think that when I was looking at coaching in the first place, the way that I did it was pretty good. I wrote down a list of exactly what I wanted in a job. And I think that as a college coach, you have to be so passionate about rowing. If you're not passionate about rowing, you're not going to enjoy it. It's kind of the same thing I tell high school athletes. If you don't love the idea of training twice a day, every day, you're not going to enjoy college rowing. And if you don't like the idea of being outside twice a day, training athletes twice a day, living that athletic life, you're not going to enjoy it. And so making sure that, that's your priority. You cannot be chasing a paycheck. rowing coaches don't get paid that well, that can be your priority. So you have to have your priorities straight. I think that's really the crucial part. Something that I noticed is that there is more paperwork than I expected. It's not just about the coaching, there's plenty of administrative stuff to do as well, especially when it comes to recruiting. There's a lot of stuff on that side. So, figuring out, what do I enjoy? What am I good at? Because if you're not passionate about recruiting, if you don't like talking to the future generation of rowing, recruiting is probably not for you. Same way that, if you don't enjoy being on the water, if you don't enjoy being outside, coaching is probably not for you. So I think kind of figuring out where your priorities are, what you enjoy, what your skills are, is an important piece to figuring out, am I going to be a viable coach, let alone a good one?
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Penn University rowing program?
Yeah. Penn Rowing is on Instagram at Penn Women's Rowing. We've also recently started our TikTok, which is getting more and more popular. Same hashtag. And then on Instagram, I am at Kumari Lewis, Kumari.
Thank you again, Coach Kumari Lewis, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Penn Rowing.
Thank you so much.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Kumari Lewis, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.